Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have today a session on a very, very important topic, the seminar, and I'm so happy that Professor Bharat Bhasker and our own, I would say, Yatindra bhai has consented for their insightful talk on this session. So Indian century, of course, nothing great to talk when we have the experts here. But we know that everywhere we are seeing India's decade, and then next time, and then we talk about naturally the India's decade will put us into the role and the momentum, and thus it's rightly said India's century. And we talk about a 5 trillion sooner, becoming the third largest economy globally sooner, as soon as we hit that. And then certainly by 2047, that the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister that we would be a developed economy. So this Amrit Kal, as we have coined, the Prime Minister has coined, this is going to be the exciting phase of the Indian economy. We have seen the macro parameters, the inflation in control, with the foreign exchange reserves very well, in spite of the vulnerability, the geopolitics, the wars happening elsewhere in the world. But India is still quite a stable zone. The Reserve Bank has not disturbed the rates for last almost 6 monetary policies, and they continue to look at it. And that's the reason that everybody globally, as investors, are looking at India, a very important destination for investment, as well as a strong, hard investment for manufacturing and other business that they are looking at. So I think this is the right time, and Professor, who better than you from the management background, and this is part of our management week, Professor. And management week, which tomorrow is a national management day, you are at the IMA for that national management day, and thus we had the best person that we could find as management expert as a director of IIM Ahmedabad for our management day program, and as the important program of the management week. I would, of course, not take a lot of time, but I would do my important duty to introduce the speakers today. Professor Bharat Bhasker is a director at IIM Ahmedabad. He holds a PhD and master's degree in computer science from Virginia Tech, USA, and a bachelor's in engineering from IIT Roorkee. A vast academic and industry experience, he transformed IIM Raipur. He was the director at IIM Raipur and received the Best Director of Business Schools Award. Thank you, sir. Professor Bhasker has held visiting positions at prestigious institutions worldwide and senior roles in organizations like Sybase Incorporated, US, and Tata Steel Limited. He has also chaired committees and served on boards of various organizations, showcasing his leadership and expertise. And of course, we all know as IIM Ahmedabad how important a position that he has, how the city of Ahmedabad, how it respects the institution and thus the leader of the institution. Sir, thank you. As a memory, we would like to offer you a token and a memento, and thanks for coming, sir. I'll also introduce Yatindra bhai, who is, the man who is part of this institution, and then, of course, hand over the talk to both the honorables or our honored speakers. Shri Yatindra bhai Sharma, Managing Director, KHS Machinery Private Limited, a joint venture with KHS Germany. Specializing in turnkey solutions for beverage and food packaging. The leaders, global leaders that KHS, and he has been a leader managing this for so many years till recently. KHS, under his leadership, has become a market leader in India, serving clients like the large Coca-Cola's, PepsiCo's, Nestle's. And he has a distinguished profile, having won numerous awards in manufacturing and export excellence. He has held leadership positions in industry associations and actively engages with government bodies and industrial policies. He is also on the council of All India Management Association, and where his inputs are treated quite important. Mr. Sharma is involved in various educational and development initiatives, serving as Vice President of DDU Alumni Association and mentoring at the Yatindra Sharma AMA Academy. Of course, Yatindra Bhai has also been instrumental or a kind sponsor, a generous contributor to AMA for vocational guidance, for Kaizen Academy also. Additionally, he has represented Indian business interests internationally and contributed to Indo-German economic relations. Thank you, Yatindra Bhai. He has been a past president, AMA, and I would say that, Yatindra Bhai, when I was in school and college, I have been listening to you. So I'm talking about some 25 years and more that I have been, I can use the word, I've grown listening to Yatindra Bhai on the management insights. And so we had him as a pick, and we are lucky that today Professor Bhasker and Yatindra Bhai are with us on the Management Day program. We'll also honor Yatindra Bhai with a token. Thank you, sir. And certainly, without much ado, Professor Bhasker, would like to sit there, sir, or you, however you're comfortable. And we were happy to have your views on the Indian century management, managing growth with transformation. This is under the auspices of our past president, PVR and IR Management Research Center, sir. Over to you, sir. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Sawanji, Yatin Bhai, and all the industry leaders who are present here. I was speaking to Sawan Godialji at that point of time. He said, National Management Day is coming and they celebrate Management Week, and I should talk about India growth story. And I was wondering, you are actually the practicing managers. So you know what kind of growth is happening and what are the impediments, what are the challenges. So what will I really impart to you at this stage? But then since I had to talk, so I decided I'll share with you the India growth story, what I believe are the impediments and what we should be careful about. Many of you may remember, in around 2002, we had a grand campaign worldwide, and the campaign was called Incredible India. Right? You had it everywhere, plastered all over the world, the campaign of Incredible India. If we have to redo that campaign today, I'm sure you'll agree with me, it should be called Inevitable India. And it's not only the enthusiast about India talking about that India is an inevitable economy. It's going to happen. Even the analysts are talking in the same language. Goldman Sachs believes by 2070, India will be the second largest economy of the world. Right? If you look at the analysis of Financial Times, the Financial Times says that by 2050, India will have a 30% more purchasing power than United States. Because we believe that world economy is driven by, much of it by US consumption, because it has a huge amount of, whether borrowed or on credit, but has a purchasing power. So, India will have 30% more purchasing power. Obviously, that means a lot for future of the growth of this country. The problem is that we have had these enthusiastic and optimistic views. Despite having these optimistic views about India from 2000 onward, much of these promises have not panned out. One way or other, we have stumbled. We had it in, Dr. Kalam used to talk about in the same era, India 2020, and we will be a developed nation. What happened to it? Right? We have not achieved that. Is this what the phenomena we are talking about? Amrit Kal being called developed country in 2047, or we take the global analyst view again talking about the same kind of thing, that doubling the economy, number 2 economy, 30% growth, extra purchasing power. Every time we have been disappointed. And it's not been. So we need to look at if this time this story will come true. Although enthusiast and optimist will immediately tell you, this time the story is very different. Right? We need to little go back and understand, in order for this story to be true and its story to really pan out this time, is this really a different scenario? If you look at our scenario of development, we have what you see today, we are growing much faster. Yes, it's true. Especially if you look at past 10 years or 1 decade of a growth, we have never seen consistent growth for 10 years in various basic elements of the economy. It may not be the actual industrial and manufacturing production going up to that extent, but the infrastructure or the elements of the economy or the foundations are very, very strongly getting laid. Now, issue is, when you are looking at this kind of a faster growth, will we be able to scale up? Because we have our own challenges. Challenges are the population. We talk about India is a huge purchasing power. We talk about India is a great rising nation. But I think about 800 million people still have a very limited purchasing power in their hand. Yes, we can say there are about 60 million other people, 600 million other people who have and which make up for most of Europe. So there are 2 Indias evolving there. And this growth cannot continue unless it's an inclusive growth of all. More and more people from 800 million continue to join these 600 million and we continue to expand this club. But before we get into that story, we need to look at in 1947 where we were and why some of the promises didn't pan out. Because every government has wanted India to be a developed country. All of them have worked hard with their own understanding and their own processes. In 1947, when British left us, we were only 34 crore people. But average life expectancy was only 30 years. 1900 to 1947, annual growth rate of the economy was only 1%. And the population growth was 3.5%. We had 16% of the literacy rate in this country and total of the 17 universities in the whole country. Roughly about 2 lakh people went to the universities to get education. So that was the state of affair we were left with. From there, what we achieved is that wonderful part, we created a world-class constitution for ourselves in less than 2 years. Because when British left, they thought probably India will not be able to manage itself. And do they know what democracy is? And because we have always dictated, and prior to that there was a kingship, sultanates, etc., etc. So will they understand? Will be able to hold together? We showed the world in less than 2 years. We created our inclusive constitution, which has an enshrined value of democracies in it, and we have succeeded as a vibrant, at times very noisy democracy. But as an Indian culture, I take that noisy being part of our cultural significance. More noisier we are, more vibrant democracy is. Right. With that success in hand, not only we succeeded in creating that impact on various processes, we believe the path to success, because the capital was not there with the country. The path to success is going to be the socialism oriented. Inclusiveness will come with a socialistic path. And we followed that path. Good and bad can be written about it. It's easy to do the analysis in hindsight. But it took us to what we call the Indian growth rate or elephant's growth rate or whatever. India only operates at the pace of elephant, etc. and so on. So we did achieve a growth. I would call it still significant because we did not have anything to start with whose 90% population was living in poverty. Some improvements happened. Food was the issue. Food security was the issue, although excess of that is causing problem today, what we see at Haryana border or Punjab borders. Now we have too much production, but that was necessitated at that point of time just to feed our stomachs. From that challenge, we came to a new era or a different era altogether. And we have shown to world, despite, remember, when socialism we adopted, etc. and so on, people thought what kind of vibrant economy they will be. Will they be democratic at all over a period of time, because we had all kind of upsurges, upheavals, secessionist movements at various corners of the country, etc. and so on. But what they didn't realize, that democracy to Indians has not been given by a person, not by any party. It's an integral part of our DNA. We just had to figure it out, what was in our DNA, by adopting a constitution. We consistently have performed or outperformed the democracies of the world. How many democracies in the world can say they can have an election using electronic voting machines? Within a matter of a day, the counting happens, which is accurate as well as timely in nature. The power transfer has happened now nth number of times. So simple, so easy. Look at our neighbors, then you realize what power transfer means. So we achieved and shown to world. And we are probably only one of the 10 countries in the world who is using electronic voting technology. But not only, we are the only country in the world which is using for all major elections, state elections and central elections, central government elections, etc. and so on. So we have shown to world that democracy has a root here. It's for others to learn from us how free and fair elections can be conducted, and what kind of constitution guarantees that kind of environment. That is one of the greatest achievement which builds the foundation for rest of our achievement. Because I believe that it's the democratic societies which take longer to grow but sustain there for a significant amount of time. US being example. It took time. First civil war, or their civil war. Post that, once they started the journey of innovation and growth, they've continued and sustained themselves for now more than a century. A lot more than a century now. And it's the rooted value of democracy which causes them to happen. But on the economic front, we have although adopted a part of socialism, the opportunity did come to us. An opportunity came for first time to us when actually America was looking to de-risk the production and diversify into other countries. Unfortunately, we were afraid, I would say, and that's my own interpretation, probably we were afraid of the British India companies doing here, so we did not want these multinational or mega US corporations to come here. This was all happening in 70s when the US wanted to extend its hand and grow its economy by partnering with the Indian economy. We were closing our doors. While China in late 70s started opening its doors. And when China opened its doors, we closed our doors in 77 to 80 period by driving out multinationals which were there already here. Coca-Cola, IBM, we threw all of them out. Although in the hindsight we can say there are some positive impacts of that as well. But if we would have opened, it would have been, in place of China, we would have been that economy. No matter what, it's a second opportunity, came because of a compulsion. A compulsion of what? The 89 to 91 scenario, you're all very familiar. We nearly went bankrupt as far as the foreign currency reserves are concerned, and we had no choice but to heed to the terms and conditions of IMF and World Bank. And liberalization started. The moment liberalization started, the economy opened up. Some of the limiting factor of license Raj began to disappear. Businessmen got their hands unshackled, and the vibrancy of economy began to happen. Since then, our economy has been growing. But policy makers, meaning the government, at times has been fearful of taking the strong reform decision because we came from socialist mindset and now we are moving into the capitalistic world. That required a courage, but slowly we moved. There are times we moved 2 steps forward and then we rolled back a policy and 1 step back. But still it provided us a decent amount of growth. Things happened to improve. Variety of things begin to happen. One of the completely unregulated sector, even in 80s, happened to be because governments never understood what computers were all about. And since they didn't understand, and on top of that, they never understood what this software is and where it is. So our business, people with business acumen took a great advantage, and that also shows the capability and capacity of Indian business community. New entrepreneurs like Narayan Murthy came. TCS, FC Kohli told his Tata's group, let me do this IT consulting. And he said, what is that? He said, I'll figure it out. Give me 10 people and I'll start it. And today, TCS actually, market capitalization wise, is more than some of the many companies of the Tata group. Right? So, big degree of where the freedom was given to them, they became the world leader in that sector. Not only they became world leader, they also showed and created the infrastructure and capabilities. Many of the networking capability and all these video conferences, etc., are a precursor to their precursor is the business model of Indians. Because we had to work in night, they have to be in daytime, and travel was very expensive. So they had to figure out various mechanisms by which the communication can happen. And in order to create that, solve those problems, they continue to create variety of tools. The economy has grown tremendously since then. But as I said, till 2010-11, it was 2 steps forward and then roll back a policy. There was a differences in the government itself because both set of people were still available. Consistency of policy didn't come in picture. So we muddled along, continued to grow, move forward. But then came the new era, where we decided all that done, all that cautious decisions taken of the past, it's time to roll on. We are already on a path to capitalism. Why not drive full throttle? So you have seen in past decade the kind of progress which has happened. Right? And this progress is of a very different kind. What kind? It has created today a very vibrant economy, right? Which has created a growth of a middle class. Now, middle class is a very fuzzy definition. If you go by global standard, we only have actually 7 crore people who are the true global middle class. But fortunately, we have 80 crore people, or maybe at least 50 crore people, which we call aspirational middle class. I don't want to call them lower middle class, because their aspirations are no less than the middle class. First opportunity they try acquiring what middle class would like to acquire. Sometimes they go overboard by their saving, etc. and so on. So we truly have an effective 47 to 57 crore middle class or aspirational class, which would like to consume and which makes us one of the largest consumers of the world. With that kind of a environment, let us see what we have done in past 10 years. In past 10 years, we have achieved, when British left us, there was 3% electrification. Today we have 100% electrification. Water supply or water from the tap, the recent mission of a government of India, from 17% households, it has reached to 49% households. Right? From 32 crores, now almost 80 crore people are getting the water supply. We have also gotten an infrastructure, a road being constructed 10,000 kilometers per annum. And that's a tremendous growth for the future of this country. It doesn't produce, but it facilitates the logistics, facilitates the production, facilitates the supply chains. Other aspect which has happened is that mobile phones. Everyone you look at is carrying mobile phone. There are almost 1 billion mobile phone users in this country. There are almost 80 crore fixed internet users. And look at the data speed they are deriving. On a mobile phone, you get about 14 to 15 megabits per second, which means one full song can be downloaded in 1 second. And that's why we are streaming movies, etc., watching shows, etc., in mobile. You look at fixed data speed, that's about 48 Mbps. Now, these averages, if you look at some of the Western countries, may sound lower, but it's because of these are averages and we have uneven speed. And certain village parts is a lower speed, other parts a much higher speed. So, with that kind of a mobile data connectivity, we have become the world's largest data consumers. USA and China's total data consumption combined is lesser than India's data consumption. And the cost, not even a fraction of what Western people pay. And that's why probably our bigger consumer, we believe more we scale up, prices will continue to go down. And that's true of every infrastructure. More the users, lesser the price. So we have shown that to the world, but what it has given us an opportunity to address the unaddressable people. With everyone having mobile in hand, today whether it's in your taxes, whether it was a COVID time, COVID application, through which no country can say in a single day 1 crore vaccination were achieved, and all that was updated in a COVID and certificates were also delivered. That's because of this infrastructure or a public digital infrastructure which we had developed. On that this application thrives. With 80 crore people out there, it's a biggest market space. And that market space has come alive. You see the newer generation people creating multiple applications, what we call the unicorns, out of these. India has become third largest startup country. Because of this public infrastructure, 75 to 80% of the startups are because of this public digital goods infrastructure. There are two stories of the growth in India right now. This is the digital infrastructure growth, and I can continue to talk about that, but I think you are all quite familiar with. And this story gets talked about again and again at multiple places. The software, the applications, the mobile-based applications, various government public utility applications I talked about. And the biggest of all, we have shown to the world we are innovators, is the UPI. Right? Actually, MasterCard and Visa are worried about UPI, and they are not allowing us to come in many of the countries. Right? Because UPI, the cost of transaction to either side is, and MasterCard, Visa thrive on that cost of the transaction. So, the shopkeeper also in India will say, card nahi lena, UPI kar do. Either give cash or UPI. Otherwise, 1%, 2% add the value. Because that cost transaction fee wants to derive from you only. We are doing roughly about 41 billion transactions, beating China now. Because China was in a financial transaction ahead of us. But today, from sabji wala to ready wala to anybody you go, everybody is on a UPI. Right. Bringing the financial cost of transaction down, we are really poised to rule the financial markets because IPR, right of the UPI, is with us. More people come on our platform, stronger we become. Earlier we used to say everybody ultimately has to use the US platform, all the businesses are global export import, go through, and the channel, the money part, US will be there. Right? And that's why dollar remains strong, because it's the foundation currency for all of them. There are many more applications. As I said, Make My Trip, Yatra, Uber, whose equivalent in India got Ola, and on and on. We have done, we did our Flipkart, of course we sold it off to Walmart now, so it's no more Indian owned business, but we continue to create more and more of them. Cred, and there are multiple out there. What I want to talk in rest of the time is the story of manufacturing. Because we are a large country, the wealth distribution also has to happen. And that cannot happen by digital goods, because it creates that 6 crore or 7 crore of the middle class into a upper and a further upper middle class. Others are deriving advantage of it, but they don't derive monetary value out of it. The wealth distribution does not happen because they don't have that capability. They cannot write programs, apps, etc. and so on. They cannot participate in the benefit of that economy. To a certain extent they can. For example, in Flipkart and Amazon, they are saying now you are a craftsperson, you are a small store, I can onboard you, etc. and so on, and you will find a bigger marketplace. But that's only a limited role. How many of them they will be able to onboard? So the opportunity lies for us is in manufacturing, because fortunately for us, America and China are on diverse mode, and because of that distance between America and China, America is looking for de-risking its manufacturing from China, especially what went on for past 2-3 years. And where they can de-risk, only opportunity is India, there is no choice. They can think of Ireland, there is hardly any population. All the youth, by 2030, it is expected we'll have 100 crore working age population in this country, which is called sweet spot. And our sweet spot will continue till about 2047, 2050. And that's why our Prime Minister calls it a Amrit Kal. But this Amrit Kal will become Amrit only if this 100 crore are being put in put for the benefit of the economy. Otherwise, Amrit Kal can also become Vish Kal. Right? So we have to be very careful how we drive towards that Amrit Kal and achieve that goal. Otherwise, I will say, we had a promise of 2020, we had a promise of Goldman Sachs, and none of them have panned out. And there was one more promise where we also failed. So in this context, we need to talk about, we have an opportunity again, which we had in 70s and 80, late 70s and 80, to be the business of the be the country of the manufacturing. Today, by de-risking in China, now Apple is trying to manufacture about 20 million phones, iPhones in India, which means at least 50,000 more jobs. Micron wants to de-risk China, they are coming to Gujarat. And on, we have to create, which means a doing ease of business environment. Some of the things have happened in ease of business, but we need to do a lot more. We need to become, in order for Amrit Kal to be realized, at least in the top 50 doing ease of business in India. We are somewhere about 70, 75, etc. and so on. We need to simplify doing our business far bigger, far more. In US, it takes half a day to form a company, with all compliances, etc. and so on. If you are a manufacturing, of course, pollution board, etc. and other things are there, but I am talking a services company. I don't think you can even do that in India. We need to reach that stage, at least in the sectors where multiple players are not involved, or multiple pollution board, land board, etc. are not involved. Let them have that freedom. The bigger part is that this opportunity is ripe only for those who understand India. Lots of foreign investment has come and continues to come. And many of them dabble at the first phase and then they walk away. One is, of course, ease of doing business, but that is a smaller part. Other is not being able to succeed in the business here. Those who have succeeded, we need to learn from their story. We are a very different story. We need to look at our consumer class again. Our consumer class is an aspirational middle class. That's why in this country, luxury cars are selling enough, but the most popular car is which? WagonR. 41% of the market share is held by WagonR. Maruti has decoded the code of India. It can also create luxury car and begin to compete. But it's a marginal player in the rest of the world. But in India, against the giants, is the largest player. They have tried attacking it from various angles. Nobody has succeeded because they understand the DNA or a genetic code of India where their money code resides. We are a frugal investors. A person who can afford even a slightly higher car will probably buy WagonR. He'll say, एक car ले लेंगे for the luxury, etc. to show off, but for daily travel, it should be WagonR or some small car. And that's our mindset. So one has to decode that mindset. As a cultural sensitivity, McDonald's has succeeded greatly in this country. But you see what they have done? And they made many people billionaires or millionaires. The franchisees, almost every franchisee is a billionaire now. But they Indianized their product. They never thought of veg burgers. And today their offerings are all veg burgers. Their offerings are also family-oriented offerings because they have figured out Indians don't come like a young person in America who just picks a burger and walks and eats. They come as a family, so there should be in my product offering something for everybody in family. So we need to understand and decode that code. The market is going to be always at masses, what C.K. Prahalad calls bottom of the pyramid. And India is the example. What he was talking about was create the products for bottom of pyramid like sachet, etc. for the. But what I am saying is, even those large scale products, but achievable by masses, or at least I can aspire to achieve. If the car starts at 30 lakhs, my income is 5 lakh or 6 lakhs per, and which is where most of the middle class of India, what I call aspirational middle class lies, will not even try achieving it. But if the car is $7,000 or 5 or 6 lakhs, he will achieve it. And next time he will achieve a slightly higher version. And that's what Maruti does, tries graduating them one by one. So that's the kind of a model we need to pursue in Indian context. Look at the products which we have. Second is when you are looking at these products, be careful. The disruption may come from a profitability perspective. You have seen the US industry was manufacturing, or US was manufacturing its own industry. That industry moved away to Japan. From Japan it moved to Korea, and from Korea it moved to China. We need to understand the reason it moves. We are getting this opportunity, but there will be somebody trying to wait and waiting for this opportunity to come. And what happens? You can understand that by story of steel mills in America. US was the largest steel maker at one point of time. Nobody else actually undid the story of steel making in America. The steel making story, there are large steel mills, integrated steel plants, and that's what we have in India. And then somebody figured it out that this mini mill has come. So I'll install this mini furnace. Maybe in size of this room, 2 or 3 mini furnaces can be fitted. And they bought the scrap from the marketplace and they'll melt it and they'll make out of it reconstruction bar or rebars. Low quality. Much cheaper. First mini steel mill, cost and capital etc. is much lower. So the price will be down. Plus they are compromising quality out of the scrap they are manufacturing. It will be cheaper. Their pricing in the marketplace was 20% cheaper than the integrated mill's rebar price. Obviously, where will the construction people buy their rebars? They all bought from these mills. They also knew it's a useless quality or a low quality, but they also knew this is going to get buried in concrete. Who will be able to figure it out what quality it was? So, rebars market suddenly began to shift toward mini steel mills. What was the reaction of integrated steel plants? They looked at their portfolio and they wondered about the portfolio and they said, what was the profitability of this rebar to me? 2%. What are the other products in my portfolio? Well, there are angles, there are high-end H bars and I bars, and then there are sheet, which are used for car manufacturing, etc. and so on. So, high-end product. This is 2% product. What if I cut it? The next line of product has a 12% profitability. They were very happy to give up that product. So, they willingly gave it up, didn't even put a fight. Their profit margins went up. Their bottom line began to look better for the integrated steel plant. But what happened in the mini mills? More mini mills came up because it was low capital expenditure, so lots and lots of multiplied. Now they are competing at 20% margin to lower cost, so their margins begin to shrink. When they were competing with lower margins, they begin to think, what can I do? So the smarter one amongst them decided, why don't we attack the angle market and produce angles here? Little more improvement, little more, we have made enough capital, so put little more capital. And they moved into that market. Again 20% lower cost. Reaction of the integrated steel mill, it's only 12% profitability. My next line is 18% profitable. Let them take it. And they said, we are only H bar, I bar makers and specialized steel maker. And they were very happy because profitability again went up. Mini mills, again the same story repeats. All of them one by one come into this. They start competing. Their capability and capital both go up. And they attack the next. H bar and I bar. Reaction of integrated plants are exactly same. They said, we become super specialized steel makers. Only sheet will produce. Rest is the history. The story repeated, and Bethlehem Steel was the last standing steel plant. US Steel is the only one amongst all those stands today. In other words, the low-end margin products which are going to come, which you ignore and you leave that market to others, they will come back to bite you in bigger market. And that's why, if you remember, when Maruti was phasing out Maruti 800, there was a big debate. Everybody is bringing out Maruti. Steam was equivalent to their other bigger cars. So should not be they doing a steam and above cars because nobody else is selling cheaper cars. This is the strategy. They shifted to Wagon-R, which was slightly above that, but the aspirational consumer had also become more aspirational by then. The income level of Indians have gone up by then. Had they left that and reacted same way, what would have happened? Right? So, in order for India growth story to pan out, even if we'll get these businesses from abroad, we need to look at the sidelines and continue to do it. Not leave those markets. Typical reaction, story repeats again and again, Toyota versus GM. When Toyota went to US market, it went with a car called Corona. After that, it introduced Tercel. GM had all these good luxury cars. GM said, oh, who wants to care about him? Only cheap customers will buy, or they are not my customers. And then they created more capital and wealth, and on and on. And today, Toyota is a Lexus seller, which is a luxury car. And not only with that capital, they bought out shares of GM. So they control even US market indirectly or indirectly. And that is why, especially it's more important in an aspirational market not to leave out where the mass market resides and not forget to address that the aspirational consumers. Intel is the only company in US which has survived and done wonderful job. Right? Intel actually is the one. 97 was facing the same problem. when it came out with the chip, its market was eroding because others were coming out with the same chip, slightly lower in performance at much cheaper rate. Intel decided that's where the market is, but I still need to raise the bar for the future because profitability will come from this line of product. But if we leave out that space, others will be able to erode and do what has happened to steel industry. Intel created a line called Celeron, which is the cheapest processor, cheaper than even AMD and their competitors' processors. And he said, here's a mass market line. I'll produce it in bulk, sell it cheaper than AMD, let them worry about their survival. Why should I worry? There may not be any profitability, or maybe 1%, 2% profitability for me. So you need to guard all those flanks. The Indian manufacturing economy, if it has to thrive, it has to guard against those flanks, because Apple will do the iPhone in India today, but tomorrow Sri Lanka, or you don't know out of which part of the world, another country will have a youth population more available, cheaper, and they'll shift their base there. So for this story to continue, we need to have continuous processing development of this. This story will be true, but we need certain facilitators. As I talked about, few facilitators or few hindrances which have happened in the past, but one is, of course, our domestic policy reforms. As I already talked about, doing business in India is an important aspect. Right? We have gotten rid of some 39,000 regulations, several laws in 2014-15 period when the new government came and said these are the hindrances. But yet there are very many hindrances left. And that needs to be removed. Doing business should be as good as getting in there and focusing on what I want to do rather than the people, the bureaucracy and people around surrounding area. Second part is that Government of India has facilitated by what we call the bankruptcy code. But has our IB, International Board of Bankruptcy, whatever code, has succeeded? I don't see any major business or major complex or a went for the promise is what, 1 year or some 180 days or 1 year, etc. That
180 days.
180 days?
Never happened before.
Even in 18 months or 36 months or 45 months, nothing happens. I think this code has done more damage than any help to the industry. When it wasn't there, at least we knew how to sort out our problems. Now, something which was designed to solve the problems early and easily has become a hindrance. You continue to get dates after dates and so on. Right? The permissions from urban local bodies. You start the business, one of the biggest hindrances are urban local bodies. Yes, the rules and laws are good. I am not saying what should be there or not. But should be transparent and executed transparently with a faceless mechanism. I don't know of any urban local body where you can get your job done without meeting Babu 10 times. Right? All this will come true. We said 1 crore people, 100 crore people are going to be available as a youth. But if they are uneducated, unskilled, good for nothing, they will be actually a problem for this country. So immediately a new education policy addresses that, but we need to go and leverage on the technology. The infrastructure we have built, how do I quickly skill, professionally empower them, enable them in order to become productive and capable person for this economy. If we fail to do that, we'll never be able to realize the Amrit Kal. Because the whole story is based on 100 crore people out of that 50, 60 crore will be able to, we have a people for production. Rest of the countries are aging and they will not have people for production. But if they are not able to produce or they are not capable of or skilled enough to produce, we will have a major problem. Right? The digital platform which is already ready, which has provided banks, etc. and so on, the capability of financial transactions, is a facilitator but has a risk right now. and we all understand the online transactions risk, although it's safe enough, I don't want to scare, but as the technology rises and AI rises, the threats are going to be perennial or bigger in nature. Now, final thing I would like to say, and I will not spend any time because I've run out of time. So, about that race for AI, right? How manufacturing will be altered, how it is going to impact, and where do we employ people in a gainful and meaningful way is going to be the question of future. I think we have to worry about, but I think we should put our house in order the way we are putting house in order today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very enlightening. Yatindra bhai, over to you, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Savan. Our guest of the day, Professor Bhasker, friends from industry, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be over here this evening, and particularly it reminds me of a very vibrant association with IIM Ahmedabad, what I was talking to Professor Bhasker, that when IIM Ahmedabad was set somewhere in 63, our founder, who was also founder of IMA, had a very nice arrangement. He got a battery of Harvard professors at IMA at that point of time, and the dream for AMA was continuing education for industry and all stakeholders of the society. And we were having all those professors who were teaching at IMA during the day. In the evening, they were coming for programs at AMA. I had a chance to go through various programs which were done, while I did in year 2000, kind of a time travel for AMA, that was Nostalgia, where we could see programs on computer programming, then, computer security at that point of time, 1965. And that association has continued with IMA, and I'm really happy to have Professor Bhasker in our premises, and let me hope that, we are going to continue this relationship on a more robust foundation. So thank you, Professor Bhasker, for coming over here and giving a very inspirational overview about, I should say, a very inspiring topic while we talk about India's century, and we are talking about managing growth with transformation. I think it is kind of a time travel what we have to go through. What we have done, I think Professor Bhasker has very nicely, woven the entire story, whereby all elements he has visited and he has presented to us. But I think for me it will be important to pick up certain milestones of our time travel from independence. I think it would be very pertinent. While we had independence, it was led by some of the most brilliant, highly educated and totally driven lot of people who could even sacrifice their own livelihood, and they went in for freedom struggle. And that was a wonderful time. Sometimes, when I sit back, I always, rue that particular element, that why I was not born in that era. It was so inspirational. And India got independence, and we had our own challenges, and we went through a kind of a time period where our growth was always told as a Hindu rate of growth. But I think somewhere in 1991-92, again, that was a turnaround for India in terms of inspiration as well as, dreams and everything together in a very difficult situation. While liberalization was declared, there was a Bombay club led by our eminent industrialist, Mr. Rahul Bajaj, who had a privilege of getting educated at Harvard. And he was the person who resisted liberalization at that point of time. That this is going to kill the Indian industry. That was the statement done by Bombay Club. But at that point of time, it gave an inspiration and dreams for small and medium enterprises and people who had little capital but great ideas. And this liberalization became the driving force of bringing different types of industries on the scene. And by year 2000, many of the industry houses who were there in first 10 houses, they were not in the list. So that was again an inspirational time for India. In my view, India got independence physically in 1947, but our economic independence was given to us in 1991. Now let us come to another milestone. In year 2000 at Davos, the thought was floated that world is moving into knowledge economy. Century of knowledge economy. That was propounded at the Davos conference. But at the same time, India also very strongly and steadily started getting into that game and putting our claim as a knowledge participant. And the first movement which came in, that was Y2K 2000, where the big companies in Western world had the lethargy to address that issue, became the golden opportunity for IT industry of India, and that became the driving force of IT industry to visit all aspects of industry expansion. I mean, an industry which had no talented manpower. Industry had ideas, but they had no, visibility how to attempt it. But they took responsibility completely, and along with the organization NASSCOM, driven by Mr. Devang Mehta, rest is the history today. That industry is providing more than $200 billion business, in India and worldwide. So that was the inspirational push, and also for India to become a claimant into knowledge economy of the world. Now, during that manufacturing sector, what Professor Bhasker said, but I think there were some very important achievements during that area. Likewise, I had privilege to listen to Professor Abdul Kalam in 1995 when he talked about India to be a developed economy by 2020. But during that time, I also had a chance to listen to Mr. Jamshed Irani, the chairman of Tata Steel, and he gave a complete story of how Tata Steel became the lowest cost producer of steel in the world. If you look at Mr. Rahul Bajaj, Hamara Bajaj, that was a scooter, how the scooter was overtaken by motorcycles, by Munjal family, and then rest of the people like escorts and everybody, is the story. And at that point of time, the cost of production of motorcycle was cheaper than scooter. If you look at pharma industry, again pharma industry started producing generic drugs at a very affordable cost. And that drive today is putting India as a major player in generic drug game worldwide. Now point is that all these things have happened, but the point is that nation is always driven by a dream. We had a dream while we became independent. The dream was generated by people of India at large in 1991. Year 2000, again, the industry became aspirational. But as a country, I think for the first time, after Professor Abdul Kalam, who declared his aspiration, which was definitely inspirational as well as aspirational, that has to come from the top leader of the country. And this has come from our Honorable Prime Minister, when he became Prime Minister, that India aspires to be a knowledge leader in the world. And that is something which is really a big call which we are taking as a country. All people put together. It is not a small thing what we are going to attempt together in this Amrit Kal. A lot of things have happened. I don't think that we should be really, what I should say, that we should be somewhat cautious or somewhat, worried about such call. Because many things have happened in the right way, and we have moved into the right direction. Talking about democracy, I think it is one of the strongest, vibrant democracy in the world. If we talk about various measures which have been taken to encourage industry, everything, yes, a lot has to be seen in next 25 to 30 years. And point is that India cannot match the best practices of the world now. If we want to be a knowledge leader, likewise our Honorable Prime Minister is saying Vishwaguru. If we really want to be, then we have to create our next practices. Not that we have to match, we have to benchmark against the best of the world and try to match them. We have to go beyond. And if we want to go beyond, there are certain building blocks for nation, for society, which are very, very important. In my view, there are three things which are very, very important. Education for all, health for all, and livelihood for all. Unless we have these three elements addressed properly, I don't think we have a chance to play our role in a manner what we are aspiring. It is very, very important. If you look at education, yes, our IITs are churning out best of the engineering graduates, our IIMs are churning out best of the management graduates, but I don't think that is the area what we should look. That is just maybe a 3% of our people. If we talk about people who are to be educated at large, it has got a big canvas. And when I say education for all, it is a collective effort by government, by society, by industry, everybody put together. It cannot happen only by government initiative. Likewise, one of the major driver can be industry. Today, if we talk about CSR funds which are being given by industry, they are running into a range of 20 to 30,000 crores per annum. It's a big money. Industry has to sit down and analyze these funds, and they have to take kind of a collective call that where this money should go. What countries like Taiwan, Korea, they attempted maybe 30, 40 years ago to groom the talent in the best of the research institutes, in the best of the educational institutes worldwide, and have them back in their countries. I think India has to do that. We have to talk about developing such talent which can come back and contribute in cutting-edge innovations, technology development, educational systems, and we need this kind of resource, and where industry has to play a very important role. Government is also playing their role, but the point is that education is the area where we have to bring it to all levels. And while I say about education, it is not just engineering education, it is just not law education. I think it is included with the skill development. Why skill development is required? Today, if we talk about some of the major areas which can provide employment, tourism, hospitality, service industry at the ground level, small businesses, these are the areas where industry, government, all put together will have to participate and create such, kind of ecology whereby people can easily access such, instruments, such facilities, and they can develop their capabilities to the next level. Let me come to the point that the telecom revolution, which has, given mobile in the hand of everybody, we are not even realizing that a sabji wala or a plumber or an electrician or even a small shop owner, how they have transformed their business. They don't understand the basics of doing a very efficient business. But somehow they have latched on to whatever was available, and today they are trying to create a footprint whereby they can have a larger employment. But the point is that the same thing, if it is taken in a structured manner, where such vocations are taken up with a view to develop small businesses for such individuals at the fraction of cost, that will create a huge leverage for employment as well as economy. Today, if we talk about tourism, we are having arts graduates, dime a dozen from all institutions. But the point is that if they are taught second language, third language, and then they are put to the industries as language interpreter, as a tourist guide. There are so many opportunities where India can create that kind of groundwork, and education becomes very important. Also, education is important to create a kind of responsible, I should say sensible, and also alert individual in the society. Democracy can only survive with such people. Otherwise, it can happen that if in democracy, if one party has got a leading edge and there is no option available, we may be driven into a different direction. So point is that education is also important to drive our society in the right direction. So education, health, Corona was a very, very serious wake-up call for the nation. The way in which we have seen, kind of people dying in, second round or in first round, the dear ones were not even able to go to the crematorium. They were afraid that if at all they go, their next chance will come. And if that is the kind of scenario, I think the healthcare and health availability has to play a very big role in improving life expectancy of the people, at the same time giving them a robust health with a robust mind to work efficiently, diligently. And there I think one of the major role which has been played by our Honorable Prime Minister, that is Ayushman Bharat. I think it has been a big deal which has been provided. But I think socialist measures apart, healthcare industry has to innovate. They have to find more affordable way of providing such services for people at large. And that will form the next building block for the nation who would like to drive into the direction where we want to be the Vishwaguru or we want to be the knowledge leader of the world. The third thing which is equally important, livelihood. Livelihood has to be one of the important driving element for all stakeholders of the society. Whether it is government, whether it is industry, whether it is, universities, we have to talk about employability. We cannot talk about employment. That's an old hat. We have to get out of that perception. We have to talk about, likewise IIMs where people are joining big organization. I think one of the key parameters where business schools should think about that how much employment an individual when he goes anywhere, he will generate. Where the entrepreneurship, the startups, they will become very, very important. Because this country needs employment, livelihood, meaningful livelihood. Not that our agrarian economy which is there today, who are piling up at Punjab border and Haryana border with their own agenda in their mind. I mean, people who are having tractors worth 30 lakhs, 50 lakhs, with all, ice boxes and everything in the tow and having a trolley behind. I mean, and these are the people who are talking about farmer demands. This is ridiculous. We have to talk about meaningful livelihood. So let us come to the next point, how we can drive next, what kind of next practices this country has to think about. Likewise, today in automobile technology, we are talking about eco-friendly solutions like EV, hydrogen car, this, that. I had a chance to, look upon various technologies. I think India has to think beyond water pellet engine, not EV, not hydrogen car. It's a water pellet engine. What it is? There is a water tank, there is an electrolyzer in the tank, which will give hydrogen directly to the engine and which will throw out water. No storage, risk of hydrogen, and this will be the future. And India has to attempt that. India cannot talk about lithium-ion batteries. We have to talk about sodium-ion batteries, where many people are not even aware that Reliance has already acquired a company which is going to manufacture sodium-ion batteries. We are talking about hydrogen production by electrolysis. It can be much beyond. We can talk about aluminum, substrates and generate hydrogen at a room temperature. Why not? University of California is doing that. We can do. That confidence we have to develop. We have to go into such kind of innovation, cutting edge technology development. I would like to see our country to develop their own brand India. Not only that, we are mimicking somebody like, Google, or we are mimicking somebody. We should find our own solutions, and we can find such solutions at much lesser cost than this entire world what is doing. It has been proven time and again by various industries, whether it is IT, whether it is pharma, even our space research. I mean, what a Hollywood movie can, spend on a budget, less than that budget we have taken our spacecraft to Mars. Likewise, our Chandrayaan project, again, a very, very frugal, cost-driven, project, but leading to the success. So point is that as a country, we have to become aspirational, and we have to talk about developing our next technology. While we talk about, Internet of Things, big data, all that, I think we have to bring that into ground reality. Why not we develop a better service module, whereby somebody sitting in a control room can service maybe 800 air conditioners in a particular locality where no service technician is required to go to the residences. We can talk about handling plants and commissioning remotely. We can talk about teaching people, multiple people at a time, apart from the classroom which is there in the university. These are the things what we have to concentrate if we really want to transform. And transformation is very much possible. Because we have already created that kind of, what I can say, that we have connected the dots so nicely, and we have got such an inspirational and driving leadership. I think time is absolutely right for us. We are a young country, we are aspirational, we have a dream. And now we have to develop knowledge, we have to develop that enthusiasm, we have to develop that, what we can say, the zeal and drive to go to the next level, take our deserving place in the center stage of world, and being a successful nation, not an economy. I really don't like this word that India is going to be a leading economy. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the economic divide. We have to talk about a successful nation where it has got education for all, health for all, and livelihood for all. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yatindra bhai. Yes, we have a 2 minute 20 second that we need additional, and Umesh bhai, please.
So it will take another 3 minutes extra, out of which 2 minutes is a video. I'll be happy and I'll be honored and obliged. Today, celebrating Management Week, and on the eve of Management Day, which is tomorrow, is a Management Day celebration across all the LMS, we are happy to launch under their blessings our AMA's first podcast. We are going to launch it with them. So let us see this video with their blessings, and AMA taking times ahead. The digital platform is also available by our YouTube and now onwards podcast also. So I'll request Professor Bhasker, Shri Sharma Savan sir, to come and just click the button.
Sir, launch of the podcasting initiative. Please, we have to click any button, so you can, sir.
Just look at every field of human endeavor. India produced some of the best minds in art, in science, in literature, in every field, including politics. I think we need to recreate the India of the 1915 to 1930 frame, where people had something to prove to themselves that they're world class, even though they were colonized. We have to get the energy back to prove to everybody, including ourselves, not just talk about being world class, but being recognized as world class, and winning Nobel Prizes is one way to demonstrate we are world class. Not the only way, but one way. If you build 30 of Fortune 100 companies, if you have 200 million trained people in this country, and you get 10 to 15 Nobel Prizes, sure, rest of the world will say you are world class.
This is the QR code. Everybody can, or whosoever can, please scan, and they can then have this access. So thank you, especially Professor and Yatindra bhai, such a fabulous, I would say, rhythm of going from a case study or how the transformation happens in the industry that Professor said, the inevitable India that Professor says, and then of course the mistakes done in the past, how we do not repeat to have that Amrit Kal and Amrit Kal to be. And of course, Yatindra bhai, certainly we can think that, not just an industrialist, but a nation man coming in, not talking about just the finances, but how can we create an ecosystem to call it a great nation then. And skilling so important, next practices, and then certainly talking about transformation. So absolutely enlightening, and we feel so good. And there are also people joining on the YouTube. So this was YouTube live also. Then this would also be available on the YouTube of AMA YouTube also. And so once again, I thank you on behalf of AMA for your presence here on this evening and eve of the National Management Day. And many thanks, Professor. We would like to have you and IIMA to be associated as much as possible, as Yatindra bhai said. This CK Prahlad lectures, we have AMA, CK used to come very often whenever he used to come to India, our Nair sir would bring him at it. And we have had it at IIMA LKP, and some 2,000 people would be there when CK comes, because that's how the IIMA and AMA had worked closely, and many such instances. So once again, thank you, and we look forward to many more sessions in the Management Week this week. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have ice cream outside. Please do join us for the ice cream. Group photo we can.